everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll go right into questions. We'll open it up. If you have a question, raise your hand and we'll get you the wireless mic. Andy?
Wireless mic. There it is.
I'm curious, what is sort of the schedule like here for you in terms of the portal opening up and looking at that stuff, recruiting? What are these next couple of weeks like?
Those two things. We're having some exit interviews with certain guys, portal conversations. The portal's going to be active, as we all know. That thing will probably double over the next several days, with it officially opening on Monday. But, the NCAA actually did something pretty smart. And these 4 days, which we lobbied for as head coaches, particularly in the ACC, will be devoted to those type of conversations, right? It's now a dead period, where in the past that's been you'd play your last game on Saturday and you'd hit the road Sunday recruiting. And it was always, even before the portal, loose ends with your current roster that you just couldn't tend to because you had to hit the road. So we've got 4 days right now, maybe a day or two too many, but we do have time to schedule meetings, involve parents or families or coaches if we need to, on young men considering foregoing their senior year to go to the NFL, guys considering going to the transfer portal, or guys that potentially you want to help them get somewhere where they got a better chance to play and be successful. So we've got a lot of those conversations. I've got, I think, 33 or 34 meetings scheduled over the next couple of days.
You were very particular in putting this staff together last year. I'm curious, after 1 year, how do you evaluate the job that group did? And do you anticipate any changes or tweaks to the staffing that you've had?
Yeah, I hope there's no changes. No tweaks right now other than, our process and some things that we've evaluated as the year went. Got total trust in these guys, love these guys. Obviously, we all, including myself, learned a great deal this year about our team, about our staff, and how we want to operate. So a lot of growth and development that I think is encouraging. I may have a different narrative if I wasn't encouraged by a lot of things I saw.
David Cunningham?
The seniors didn't get a chance to go out. I know you guys are honoring them on Sunday pregame against North Carolina, but this senior group that has kind of been there for you as you kind of build up the culture and everything, what have they meant to you, and what's it going to mean to you to finally get a chance to honor them on Sunday?
Yeah, heartbroken for both groups, right? UVA seniors and our seniors not being able to play that last game. And it means so much to both programs. And obviously, in light of what happened, it takes a back seat, rightfully so. But I look forward to having these guys, walk across that court. We're having a small banquet on Sunday to help honor these guys and their families and recognize their contributions, not just this year, but over their tenure here. These guys have weathered and endured a lot and invested a lot. So anxious to honor them, and certainly thankful for the way they embraced myself and our new staff. Sometimes that can be very challenging. And these guys, they had open ears, open hearts, and put out some trust there maybe before it was really earned and deserved. So I'm appreciative of that, and look forward to paying respect.
There are a number of those guys that have an extra COVID year if they want, and of course those conversations in the portal and the draft, like you mentioned. How unique are all these conversations now for these guys with so many options? Are they different than they were maybe 10 years ago as a coach? And, what kind of goes into all these conversations?
Yeah, so it's my goal and the staff's goal to supply as much information as we can to each one of these guys and their families to make the best choice. And I've told them all, I've already had 4 or 5 of these meetings, that I'm going to support you either way, whatever your decision is. To stay here, to leave, to go to the NFL, whatever it is. But here's my opinion. Here's my perspective. Here's the staff's perspective on what we think if we were in your shoes. But ultimately, it's about you and your family making a choice. So it's a unique time because there are a lot of options. And in one hand, it's good for these guys. You know, on another hand, sometimes it can be too inviting when things are difficult to exit out. So, but you know, we want, again, and it's been my point from the very beginning, I want young men in this program that want to be here, that believe in Virginia Tech, that want to do it the way we want to do it, what we think is right for our place, for our program. When we recruit young men or retain young men to our roster, it's about surrounding them with as many like-minded people as we can. And that's the goal, that's the objective right now.
Let's go David Teal and then Steve.
Brent, you mentioned lessons learned about the roster, about the staff. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, right? It's hard to dive into them. I mean, there's things I learned as a head coach about making hasty decisions, you know, and making sure that I navigate things and have, just like I'm talking about with our players, that I have all the information before I make decisions, that I do as much research as possible to make the right choice for our team and for our staff. We've got good, talented young people on this staff, and you know, it's not just me coaching our players, it's coaching our staff. It's also, you know, being open-minded and receiving information as the head coach and making sure I digest that, and that, you know, I don't have to make the final decision is mine, but the information and the learning process and all of that, you know, I've got good people that I trust, and, you know, I lean on them as well for their input and their insight. Coach, I'm not sure that was handled the right way. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? You know, those are the conversations I want to have, and those are the type of men and women that I hired that would give me some honest feedback when I need it as well.
This program is obviously in a different place than when you were a graduate assistant and Virginia Tech was riding high. When you look at the national landscape and you see a program such as TCU, which over the previous 4 seasons was below 500 combined, and now 12-0 and on the brink of the CFP, does an example like that encourage you that maybe it's not a long build, that things can happen a little more rapidly than in the past?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, much respect for what TCU's done this year. I look at what Florida State's done since hiring Coach Norvell. I look at what Coach Shane Beamer's doing at South Carolina, and the time and the growth and where things started. And, you know, we've gotten a much better handle on where we were when it started. You know, you come out of that Pinstripe Bowl game and you kind of start evaluating your roster, and but certainly it's encouraging to see what TCU has done. And, you know, I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't believe that we could flip the script and do this here. I've got the utmost confidence in our staff and the administration. We've got one of the greatest fan bases in the country. This is an attractive place for recruits to come, for the right recruits. They're looking for what Virginia Tech has to offer. So we're going to put in the time, the investment, there's the support. It's going to take everybody, but undoubtedly we can do this.
Steve and then Aaron there.
Coach, after this last week, was there time? Did you have some like reflection time where maybe a moment or a play or a game or a heartbreak or something came up to mind that kind of be like a special moment that you're gonna remember for the season from?
You know, I don't know. You know, obviously the victory, you know, at the end of the season was just important for so many. The guys had really worked and invested and kept kind of, you know, tying up their shoes every practice and coming out there and doing what we asked, and to get some return on your investment was I was certainly happy for the team and the staff. But at the same time, you know, this is big picture, long haul, and we're just starting this thing, man. We're just scratching the surface on flipping some things and doing some things the right way and gaining an understanding of what a good football team should look like and the things that are necessary. But, you know, most of all, I guess, there's so much encouragement by different things in each ball game. You know, you got a couple of games you lose by a point, you lose 4 by 11. I mean, you're in, I think all of them, but maybe North Carolina in the fourth quarter, you know, and you say, if we do this a little bit better, you know, you can get over the hump there. If you got another player or two, another good player or two, you get over the hump here. Be a little bit smarter here as coaches and players. You get over the hump here. There's so many ways, to trim that margin of error and turn those close losses into victories. And that's what we'll be concentrating on.
And then last week, once the game was canceled officially, what were we able to do with that time that you ended up inheriting that it's kind of unique?
Yeah, that was a tough deal. And, the timing of everything, we weren't able to do much more than, have a good Thanksgiving meal with our team and send them home to their families. Just a tough deal. And we worked all day Wednesday, and a bunch of us were around Friday, and we worked yesterday, had a team meeting last night, and get everybody back in the fold, and worked on setting up all these meetings for the week, and having the information necessary for these players and their families to make good choices. But certainly did a lot of recruitment, calling the high schools, calling the high school coaches. We're going to build this thing with high school players, but we're also going to fill needs out of the transfer portal. And so we're working both angles, and then you've got your roster retention. So there's plenty to do.
Hey, Brent. Obviously, statistically, the offense has the furthest to go here.
Yeah.
What needs to be done on that side of the ball? How much better can Tyler be in year 2 than he was in year 1? And just sort of your discussions with him about what he needs from you and what you need from him going forward.
Yeah, obviously, Tyler, I haven't flinched on how talented I think Tyler is and that offensive staff. I got a ton of confidence in them. Just like all of us, we got to dive into what didn't work and how come. That's what your off season's about, right? Your self-scout. You got to dive into all those plays. What didn't work? You got to dive into your personnel. Personnel meetings are very important to me. Did we maximize a player's strengths? Did we minimize his weaknesses? Did we maximize our strengths, minimize our weaknesses? Did we wait too long to make an adjustment? All the things that you can learn throughout a tough season, to really kind of help push that thing the right direction. I think always in the beginning, right, a staff coming together from some different backgrounds and different philosophies, which I knew we had coming into this. Those guys meshing and coming together and settling on certain things is important. And I think that, who we thought we wanted to be initially, we struggled to be that unit. And so then where do you go? We had some injuries here and there and some things that didn't go our way. But, dissecting from a personnel standpoint, what do we need? Schematically, what do we need? From a progression standpoint, I think I'm guilty. On both sides of the ball, we probably just try to do too much too soon. You try and get an idea of where your football team is, just football 101, knowledge base, fundamentals, techniques, all these things that allow you to move forward. And I think I allowed both sides to just try and be too much too soon and kind of got the cart in front of the horse. Certainly a lesson I learned.
Obviously, a lot of attention is always paid to the quarterback position. Do you want to add some competition to that room? Do you like what do you feel like what you have now is enough, or where are we going with that?
Yeah, I want to add competition to every room, including the quarterback. I'm a big believer in that. And if somebody says, "Oh, Coach, what are you doing that for? Why'd you recruit him?" If you're afraid of competition, you're at the wrong place. Each and every off season, these jobs are opened up. I don't want anybody to feel like they're just, they've got a position just because they had it last year, and that's including quarterback. I think Grant, like all of us, knows he can be better and needs to be better. It's up to us to help him, grow and develop and be the quarterback that he can be. It hasn't changed. He's very accurate. He's proven he can run the ball. We got to clean some of the other stuff up. Just kind of an uneven performance, really.
Back of the room, Anthony, and then Eric.
Brent, do you have a different expectation of what this job can be a year after you took it?
I don't think so. I think there's challenges, and I knew there'd be challenges. You never know exactly where a team is and a program is culturally, talent-wise, all the things that go into making up a good football team until you dive in. I don't know that we knew that after spring. It takes getting into a season and going through the process, a full cycle, to know where you're at. And, I'm as optimistic as ever. I've got tremendous support. I love the people that are in the building. And, we got to continue to surround our good players with more good players. It's important to me that we have culture drivers in our locker room, guys that are pushing things the right direction all the time. We need more of those, and that we eliminate or minimize the guys that aren't aligning with what we want and how we're going to do this.
Did anything stand out to you about coaching at the ACC as compared to the Big Ten or the SEC?
Yeah, I tell you, the quarterback play, I've been, it's a good league for quarterbacks. I kind of knew that going in. There were some highly touted guys, but even guys that had to step up, there was some good quarterback play, some good young quarterbacks. The skill's good, schemes are good, the tempo's good. Definitely some things that that are more challenging in this league than in the Big Ten.
Coach, you talked about perhaps doing some things a little bit too much, too soon on both sides of the ball. In terms of prep, the week leading up to games, do you see any major changes you want to make in terms of, your prep leading into weekend?
Yeah, I don't know that we've thought about the weekly prep yet. More so about what we do this winter and this spring, where the emphasis is going to be. I've already had a lot of thought and had some conversations about what we'll do there to maximize kind of the time we have. So certainly, as we, you go right into, I've told the guys right now, I don't want self-scouting done. I don't want those type of things done. I want your time spent in recruiting and managing our roster and having meetings with your players and those type of things. And there'll be plenty of time for self-scout and professional growth. I love, for both sides of the ball to set up visits with other staff, places that are doing things that we want to do and that we want to do better. We'll do a bunch of that in February. We'll invite some coaches in to spend some time with us. And, always an opportunity to learn and grow as a staff. We've got to do that.
And I know it was hard, as you mentioned, to not be able to have that final game for the seniors. What was that like, that team meeting like, if you guys had a meeting in terms of, breaking the news to them that perhaps it wasn't happening?
Yeah, it was very challenging. It kind of leaned like we were going to play, and then, it kind of went the other direction later that night. And certainly tough, I'm sure, for the UVA players, and, tough for our guys to know they're not going to have the opportunity at that last game in Lane, particularly the seniors.
Let's go David, then Andy, and then we'll go to Zoom.
As you look at the scholarship numbers, how much flexibility do you anticipate having to recruit the portal?
Yeah, we've got some flexibility right now. Again, we're not afraid of hard conversations and talking about what's best for guys and, is this the right place? Is it not the right place? If it is, but there's some concerns, let's talk about them, and we got to feel like we can get over them, and if we can't. But we've got some flexibility. There's going to be movement on the roster. I don't want the fan base to panic. There's going to be movement on everybody's roster just about. You look back over what some other places have done at LSU and USC and the turnover, after year one or after year two, what people have done. I mean, and that's not a knock on the guys that maybe don't fit what we're doing, right? It's just that. They don't fit what we're doing right now. And sometimes it takes some time to figure that out, and you want to give guys opportunities. But we got to do what's best for Virginia Tech and get that roster of 85 and that roster of guys that walk onto this program up to 125. We got to get that as much aligned with what we need and want as we can. So we got some flexibility right now. I love, the high school class we have committed and the direction we're going there, and got a few more needs at that level. And then obviously we've got our list of priority that we need from the transfer portal.
Did you and Witt entertain the idea of perhaps arranging a game for this Saturday?
Talked about very, very briefly. From a timing standpoint, it became almost impossible to line something up. That's above my pay grade, but just everything from hotels and prep and TV and everything else, it was challenging. I was certainly open for anything, but those decisions aren't mine.
Andy?
Understanding that there are lots of conversations that take place with guys this week, are there positions that you need to target or make a priority in the transfer portal?
There are certainly some, as we sit here today, and then moving through these meetings this week, based on who returns and who doesn't, those needs could shift slightly. I mean, we know there's certain areas we have to get better in, and we've got those lists built and ready. And, with some of those guys, we've done background checks and made phone calls to high school coaches and different things to kind of find the lay of the land, and are they right for us? But again, as you go through this week and, you have a player decide to come back that you weren't sure he would, that changes your need there, right? You have a player decide to leave and you're not sure, you didn't know that you didn't feel like he would leave and he does, change your priority list there. So it's an ongoing conversation. We staff meet every day to kind of work through what happened the day before and, keep the communication alive and go in the right direction with the ongoings, in my meetings.
Any spots you could share with us of what
I'd
you
probably
need?
rather not right now. I mean, I think some of them are obvious, but we've got some needs that are important to us. And again, for the most part, it still needs to make sense for Virginia Tech and for us. It's not just going out here and grabbing a guy because he's a good player at another school, and it needs to make sense. There's a rule now where you take an incoming transfer. It's pretty hard if it doesn't work out for them not to be removed from scholarship. The NCAA implemented that. I think they're trying to put some pause on, making sure you're vetting the guys that you're interested in, and which we would have done anyways. But it's you got to get the right guys. The culture is so important to us. I don't want to bring somebody into that locker room that doesn't align with the rest of the guys. That'd be, that's a disservice to them and to the direction we want to go.
And I think you have 19 commitments in your high school class in 23. How much bigger can that group get, and how difficult is that to then balance how big that group gets versus returning guys on the roster?
There's no definite number right now, right? Everything's kind of 3 or 4 here, 5 or 6 here. I mean, you got to allow for flexibility. Just it's ever changing. When I look at our high school class, I can identify a couple of areas where I say, well, I'd really like to have another player here. I'd like to get a player here. And you say, well, if you don't get a young guy out of high school, do you go to the portal and get a guy that's got 4 years left? A guy that's got 3 years left? Does that kind of replace that area of need? When you look at your scholarship grid and you're saying, okay, here's the seniors in the program, here's the juniors, here's the sophomores, here's the freshmen, and what you want each class to look like. You have the opportunity now, because of the transfer portal, that if you don't get what you need at the high school level, you can go get a young guy that is still what I would consider to be developmental.
Let's go to Zoom for a few.
On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to ask questions, and we'll open it to questions for Coach. And can we go to Tim, please?
Yeah, Brent, you mentioned not knowing what your total number situation is, both for high school and the portal. Are you anticipating when you're done with those 33 or 34 meetings that you already mentioned that you'll have a pretty clear picture, or is it going to be an ongoing process up through the early signing period at least?
Yeah, you'll have a better idea of who's staying, who's going, guys in the portal that you have a chance to recruit. But again, there's nothing binding with those guys until they show up on campus. So that's an ongoing process with the transfers. And then, like you said, once we get to that December 21st signing, you get those guys locked in, and you can put those in ink on your scholarship grid. They're not just in pencil, like the transfer portal guys would be.
We go to Ed, please.
Brent, when you're looking at guys from the transfer portal, in terms of your team, do you have a committee of players? Do you turn to current and former players? How do you go about gauging the reaction of your current players in terms of what their perception is on how a potential new player might fit?
Yeah, unless there's a prior relationship, that's not really going to have a bearing. If they know a young man and have a concern, that's important to me. And they've, that's been messaged to them. That's not just transfer guys, that's high school guys. If there's an issue or a concern, please let us know. That's just part of gathering the information. But we're going to do a great job of vetting these guys that we would consider transferring in here. To me, that involves calling their high school coach. That involves calling any handlers or trainers in the area. That also involves, reaching back, to the school they're transferring from. Most of us are, there's going to be somebody on the staff that one of us knows. And let's get some insight on why he's leaving and, kind of what went down. So I think the more information we have, the better in making a good choice for Virginia Tech and for our team.
You have time for one or two more. We'll go back to Tim, please.
Hey, Brent, when you took this job, you mentioned both the Commonwealth and that kind of 6-hour driving radius as the priorities in the recruiting and kind of personnel process. Is that something that you guys look at with the transfer portal too, or is it a situation where whoever's in the transfer portal, there aren't enough, there's not enough volume to kind of narrow things down in the same way?
Yeah, I think, again, somebody that's within 5 or 6 hours, we're more than likely going to be able to gather more information about and know more about. School we're familiar with, somebody on the staff has connections in that school or in that community, obviously helpful. I also think, when you're looking at a young man that has 3 or 4 years left, to me that's a footprint guy. That's somebody that is a developmental guy that you're in it for the long haul. And then, the flip side is you got somebody in the transfer portal that's got 1 year left. And is what you need to help that unit, to help that position. And that's a little bit different than me, for me. I don't know that the footprint's important in that area. It probably is more meaningful to the young man if he's been away from the footprint, away from home, and he's got a chance to come back closer and play in a league that makes more sense for him or closer to family. But in general, when we're looking to, fix an area of need, the footprint won't mean as much. No, sir. Only if it's a developmental guy.
We have time for a final question on Zoom. Okay, back to you, Travis.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks.